In 2001, 2 German Holocaust survivors sued the US government and then-President George Bush's family for $40 billion in compensation. They claimed that the Bush political dynasty had financially benefited from Auschwitz slave labor during World War II, and that it was this money that had established their family fortune and political empire. The Holocaust survivors were prompted to raise the case by evidence in declassified files found in the US National Archives. They revealed that late Senator Prescott Bush, father to the 41st President George H.W. Bush and grandfather of the 43rd President George W. Bush, was involved with the men who funded the Nazi Party into government, raising the problematic question, did the Bush family help get Hitler into power? With senators, governors and 2 US presidents emerging from this single family in just 3 generations, the Bush family are widely considered to be the most successful political dynasty in American history. It was founded by Prescott Bush, whose career took off after marrying Dorothy Walker in 1921. Her father made Bush a managing director and shareholder of the newly formed Union Banking Corporation, also known as UBC. UBC was set up to provide a US financial base for Germany's most powerful industrial family, the Tysons. The Tyson family owned the largest steel and coal company in Germany. The Tyson business empire was inherited by Fritz Tyson, who donated heavily to the Nazi Party, became a member in 1931, and even bought the Nazi headquarters, Barlow Palace, for Hitler. His support allowed the Nazis to consolidate power and step straight into government. Fritz Tyson was also Prescott Bush's boss. By the late 1930s, Bush's bank UBC had bought and shipped millions of dollars of gold, fuel, steel, coal and US Treasury bonds to Germany, directly financing Hitler and his build-up to war. As Tyson's Steel Corporation grew rich by Hitler's efforts to re-equip Germany's army, Prescott Bush took on more responsibility and became a director and shareholder for a number of Tyson's shell companies. The most notorious of Tyson's companies managed by UBC was the Consolidated Silesian Steel Company, otherwise known as CSSC. CSSC was located on the German-Polish border and used Nazi slave labor from Auschwitz. Documents from the US National Archives show that UBC's involvement with CSSC was not limited to holding shares for the company, and it is likely that the American directors, including Prescott Bush, may have also financially invested in the corporation. A New York Times article published at the time revealed that anonymous American interests held 1/3 of CSSC. The German businessman who owned the other 2/3 of CSSC also owned part of the chemical company that developed and knowingly sold the poison that gassed millions to death during the Holocaust. American investments in Nazi Germany were curtailed during World War II. With the attack on Pearl Harbor, America entered the war, making it illegal for companies to engage in profitable business transactions with the Axis powers. Despite this, UBC continued to secretly trade, but their continuous gold purchases raised suspicions that the bank was in fact just a nest egg for Nazi investors. In 1942, the alien property custodian seized UBC assets, as well as the Silesian American Company, another one of Prescott Bush's ventures. A report issued by the Office of Alien Property Custodian concluded that the seized properties were operated by the German government and undoubtedly of considerable assistance to its war effort. It is still disputed whether or not Prescott Bush ever did more than own these companies on paper. Nevertheless, neither Bush nor his colleagues were ever prosecuted for their role in Hitler's rise to power, Germany's rearming, or their exploitation of Holocaust victims. In 1938, Fritz Tyson himself ended his financial support for Hitler and fled to Switzerland, but he was found and arrested in 1941, ironically spending the remainder of the war in a concentration camp. It is reported, but not verified, that when Tyson died a few years after the war, his US assets were liquidated, allowing Bush to cash in his share of UBC, worth $1.5 million. Whilst the exact details of Prescott Bush's involvement with Nazi Germany have been lost to history, in 2003 the Anti-Defamation League stated that rumours about the alleged Nazi ties of the late Prescott Bush are untenable and politically motivated. Prescott Bush was neither a Nazi nor a Nazi sympathiser. Meanwhile, former US Attorney John Loftus emphasises that Prescott Bush was just involved in the same thing as many other American and British businessmen at the time. The 2001 legal case against the Bush family was dismissed on the grounds that a government cannot be held liable. Nevertheless, the question of the Bush family's role during World War II persists. On Christmas Day 2014, former Governor of Florida Jeb Bush, brother of George W. Bush, announced his intention to run for the 2016 Republican Party presidential nomination. As the Bush family continues to dominate US politics, the impact of American Nazi trading is still worth questioning today.